Commander Jake Morrison stood at the bridge of the UES Dakota and watched Europa's icy surface slide past the main screen. The massive ship had been hiding in the shadow of Jupiter's moon for 3 weeks now. Every day brought them closer to the moment that would change everything. Jake pressed his hand against the cold metal rail and felt the ship's engines vibrate through the hull. The Dakota was not like the old ships Earth used to build. This one had teeth, sharp ones, the kind that could bite through alien armor like paper. "Sir, we're getting the signal from Earth Command," said Lieutenant Ben Parker from the communications station. His voice was steady, but Jake could hear the tension underneath. They all knew what was coming. Jake nodded and walked to the center of the bridge. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. These were good people, trained people, people who had spent years preparing for a war that most of the galaxy thought would never happen. "Put Admiral Carter through," Jake said. The main screen flickered and showed Admiral Lisa Carter sitting in her command chair aboard the UES Liberty. She looked tired, the kind of tired that came from carrying the weight of an entire species. "On your shoulders, Jake," she said, without any formal greeting. "It's time. The Zephyrians have crossed the line." Jake felt his stomach tighten. They had all known this day would come. For months, the aliens had been pushing harder and harder, demanding more territory, more resources, more submission from the humans they saw as nothing more than primitive upstarts. "What are their demands?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer would be unacceptable. "Complete withdrawal from the Outer Rim mining operations. They want us to hand over all our facilities and return to Earth's solar system. They're giving us 72 hours to comply, or they'll take the facilities by force." Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. 72 hours. How generous of them. "Their fleet is already moving," Admiral Carter continued. 2,000 ships, Jake. The largest force they've ever assembled. They think they're going to crush us like bugs. The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of the ship's systems. 2,000 ships, against what the galaxy believed was Earth's small collection of outdated vessels. The aliens had no idea what was really waiting for them. "Admiral," Jake said, "do we have permission to reveal our true strength?" Admiral Carter smiled for the first time in the conversation. It was not a pleasant smile. "Permission granted. Commander, show them what happens when you corner a human." The connection ended and Jake turned to his crew. Every face was looking at him with a mixture of fear and excitement. They had trained for this moment, dreamed of it. Now it was here. "All stations, prepare for departure. Send the activation codes to all hidden facilities throughout the system. It's time to wake up the fleet." Lieutenant Parker's fingers flew over his console. "Activation codes sent, sir. We're receiving confirmations from... My God." "What is it, Parker?" "Sir, I'm showing over 800 vessels coming online. The asteroid bases, the hidden shipyards on Titan, even the facilities we built inside. The gas giants. They're all responding." Jake nodded. For 3 centuries, the galaxy had dismissed humanity as a minor species, barely worth noticing. They knew humans had survived their own wars and made it to space. But so what? Lots of species did that. What made these particular mammals special? The answer was simple. Humans were special because they never stopped fighting. Even when there was peace, they prepared for war. While other species enjoyed their comfortable civilizations, humans built weapons in secret. They planned. They prepared. They remembered every lesson their bloody history had taught them. "Take us out of Europa's shadow," Jake ordered. "Let's go say hello to our Zephyrian friends." The Dakota moved away from the moon's protective darkness and into the light of the distant sun. As they cleared the shadow, Jake could see other ships emerging from hiding places throughout the system. Dozens of them, then hundreds. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian Advance Fleet," Parker reported. "Put it through." The screen showed a tall, elegant creature with pale blue skin and large black eyes. The Zephyrian looked exactly like what it was, a member of a species that had known only peace and prosperity for thousands of years. Its voice was smooth and confident. "Human vessel, you are ordered to withdraw immediately. This system is now under Zephyrian protection. Your primitive ships pose no threat to our forces, but we prefer to avoid unnecessary destruction." Jake stepped forward so the alien could see him clearly. "This is Commander Jake Morrison of the United Earth Ship Dakota. I'm afraid I have to decline your generous offer." The Zephyrian's large eyes blinked slowly. "Commander, you misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. Our fleet consists of 2,000 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy. Your entire species possesses perhaps a few dozen outdated vessels. Resistance is not just futile, it is suicide." "You know what I think?" Jake said, his voice casual and relaxed. "I think you've been listening to too many of your own legends about us. Let me tell you a better story." Jake gestured to the screen showing the space around them. More and more human ships were appearing as they left their hiding places. The Zephyrian's confident expression began to change. "The story goes like this," Jake continued. "Once upon a time, there was a young species that fought terrible wars among themselves, wars that killed millions, wars that nearly destroyed their entire planet. Other species looked at these wars and said, 'How primitive, how savage, how thankful we are to be civilized.' The human fleet continued to grow. Ships emerged from asteroid bases that the aliens had never detected. Vessels that had been hidden in the rings of Saturn powered up their engines. Battle groups that had been disguised as mining operations revealed their true nature. But those other species missed the point of the story," Jake said. "They didn't understand that all those wars taught the young species something very important. They learned how to kill efficiently, how to build weapons that could end worlds, how to fight against impossible odds and win through pure stubborn refusal to give up." The Zephyrian was no longer looking confident. Its pale blue skin had become even paler. "This is impossible. Our intelligence reports showed only a handful of human vessels." "Your intelligence was exactly what we wanted it to be," Jake replied. "See, we learned something else from all those wars. We learned how to lie, how to hide our true strength until the moment we needed it, how to make our enemies underestimate us right up until the moment we cut their throats." The count of human ships on the display had passed 500 and was still climbing. Each one was armed with weapons that combined human creativity with alien technology they had quietly acquired over the decades. Each one was crewed by people who had grown up hearing stories of humanity's greatest victories, victories that had always come when the odds seemed hopeless. "So here's what's going to happen," Jake said, his voice now hard as steel. "You're going to turn your pretty ships around and go home. You're going to tell your leaders that the humans are not the primitive species they thought we were. And you're going to explain that if they want a war, we'll give them one that will make their worst nightmares look like pleasant dreams." The Zephyrian's image flickered and disappeared without another word. Jake could imagine the panic spreading through their advanced fleet as they realized they were facing not a few dozen outdated human ships, but a battle-ready armada that had been preparing for this moment for generations. "All ships, this is Dakota Actual," Jake broadcast to the growing human fleet. "Today, we stop pretending to be weak. Today, we stop hiding in the shadows. Today, the galaxy learns what happens when you threaten humanity's children." The response came back from 800 ships at once, 800 crews ready for battle, ready to show the galaxy that the legends of human determination were not just stories, they were promises. Captain Alex Stone gripped the armrests of his command chair as the UES Nevada shook from another impact. The asteroid belt around them provided cover, but it also made maneuvering dangerous. One wrong move and they would slam into a rock the size of a building. "Damage report," Alex called out over the noise of the ship's engines. "Hull breach on Deck 7 sealed," reported Chief Engineer Maria Santos. "We've lost 2-point defense turrets, but the main guns are still operational." Alex nodded and studied the tactical display. The Zephyrian advance scouts had been overconfident. They had expected to sweep through the asteroid belt and clear a path for their main fleet. Instead, they had flown into a trap that had been 3 months in the making. Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez, how are our fighters doing? Beth Rodriguez looked up from her flight control station, her face lit by the glow of dozens of small screens showing individual fighter positions. Squadron 7 just finished their attack run on the Zephyrian cruiser, direct hits on their engine section. Squadron 12 is moving in to finish the job. Alex watched the tactical display as tiny dots representing human fighters swarmed around the much larger alien vessel. The Zephyrians had never faced tactics like this before. Their ships were designed for long-range battles between capital ships. They were not prepared for swarms of small, fast attackers that could slip through their defenses and strike at close range. "Sir, the lead Zephyrian vessel is trying to signal us," said Communications Officer Tony Chen. "Let me hear it." The bridge. Speakers crackled with the voice of an alien commander. The translator made it sound flat and emotionless, but Alex could hear the confusion underneath. "Human ships, your fighters are in violation of accepted combat protocols. Ramming attacks are forbidden under galactic warfare conventions." Alex almost laughed. The aliens were complaining about his pilot's tactics in the middle of a battle. They really had no idea what they were dealing with. "This is Captain Stone of the Nevada. Tell me, what part of your declaration of war mentioned following our rules?" There was a long pause before the alien responded. "The Galactic Consortium has established clear guidelines for military engagement. These rules exist to prevent unnecessary casualties and maintain civilized conduct during conflicts." "Civilized conduct," Alex repeated. "You invade our system, threaten our people, and demand our surrender. Then you expect us to fight by your rules. Do you see the problem with that logic?" Another explosion lit up the space around them as one of the human fighters detonated itself against the hull of a Zephyrian destroyer. The alien ship's shields collapsed, and secondary explosions began tearing through its superstructure. "That was Lieutenant Jimmy Walsh," Beth reported quietly. "His fighter took damage, and he couldn't make it back to the carrier. He chose to take one of them with him." Alex felt the familiar cold anger that had kept him alive through a dozen battles. The aliens wanted to discuss civilized conduct while his people died defending their homes. They were about to learn what uncivilized conduct looked like. "All ships. This is Nevada Actual. New rules of engagement. No prisoners. No mercy. Show them what happens when they bring war to humanity." The human fleet responded with increased aggression. Ships that had been fighting defensively now went on the attack. Fighters that had been making careful runs now threw themselves at alien vessels with suicidal determination. Alex watched a group of human destroyers work together to surround a Zephyrian battleship. The aliens had superior shields and weapons, but they fought like individuals. Each ship tried to find the best position for itself. The humans fought like a pack of wolves, coordinating their attacks to overwhelm their prey. "Sir, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the human vessels," Tony reported, monitoring alien communications. "The Zephyrians are confused about our weapon systems." "What kind of confusion?" "They keep saying our energy readings don't match any known technology. They think we're using some kind of experimental weapons." Alex smiled grimly. The aliens were half right. Human weapons were experimental in the sense that they had never been tested in real combat before, but they were not based on unknown technology. They were based on very well-known human technology, the kind that came from centuries of finding new ways to kill each other efficiently. "Captain Stone?" Beth called out with excitement in her voice. "Squadron 15 just pulled off something incredible. They used the asteroid field to hide their approach, then came up behind the Zephyrian command ship. They're inside its shield perimeter." Alex watched the tactical display as 12 human fighters danced through the space around the massive alien vessel. The Zephyrian ship was 10 times the size of the Nevada, but it could not bring its main weapons to bear on targets so close to its hull. "What are they doing?" Alex asked. "They're attaching something to the hull." Sir, those are boarding pods. They're going to try to take the ship from the inside. The idea was insane. 12 fighters against a ship with a crew of thousands. But Alex had seen human insanity work before. Sometimes the enemy's logical response to an illogical attack was no response at all. Connect me to Squadron 15 leader. Captain Stone, this is Major Katie Davis, came the voice through the communication system. We're about to knock on their front door. Major, you're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. This is suicide. Sir, with respect, everything we've done today has been suicide. The difference is we're too stubborn to die. Alex could hear weapons fire and explosions in the background of the transmission. Major Davis and her people were already fighting their way through the alien ship's corridors. We've studied their ship designs for months, Davis continued between bursts of gunfire. These vessels are built for comfort, not combat. Wide corridors, fancy decorations, lots of open spaces for their crew to relax. Perfect for small unit. Tactics. And what exactly is your objective, Major? We're going to take their bridge and convince their captain to surrender his entire fleet. If he refuses, we'll convince the next captain in line. Eventually, we'll find someone reasonable. Alex shook his head in amazement. Only humans would think that capturing an enemy flagship with 12 people was a reasonable plan. The scary part was that it might actually work. Sir, Tony reported, we're receiving a general distress call from the Zephyrian fleet. They're requesting immediate reinforcements and asking for instructions on how to deal with human tactics. What kind of instructions? They want to know if ramming attacks, suicide runs, and boarding actions by small units are considered normal human behavior, or if we're using enhanced soldiers. Alex laughed out loud this time. The aliens thought his people might be genetically modified super soldiers because they could not believe normal humans would fight so aggressively. Tell them the truth, Tony. Let them know that every person in this fleet is a standard human being. No modifications, no enhancements, no special training beyond what every human child learns growing up on Earth. What do human children learn? That makes them fight like this? Tony asked. They learn that the universe is not fair. They learn that bigger and stronger does not always win. They learn that sometimes the only way to survive is to be more willing to die than your enemy is. The Scifistories. Battle was turning. The Zephyrian advance fleet had started with superior numbers and technology, but they were being systematically destroyed by an enemy that refused to follow any predictable pattern. Human ships appeared where they should not be able to go. Human fighters attacked targets they should not be able to reach. Human tactics made no sense from a civilized military perspective. Captain, Beth announced. Major Davis reports that she has secured the Zephyrian command ship. Their captain has agreed to order his entire fleet to withdraw. Outstanding. Tell the Major she and her people have earned themselves a place in the history books. Sir, we're receiving the Zephyrian withdrawal order now. All enemy ships are breaking off and heading back toward their territory. Alex watched the tactical display as the surviving alien vessels turned away from the asteroid belt and began to retreat. They had learned something important today. They had learned that humans were not like other species. When humans were threatened, they did not behave in predictable ways. They became dangerous in ways that civilized minds could not understand. All ships. This is Nevada Actual. Good work today, people. But remember, this was just the advanced scouts. The real fleet is still coming, and now they know we're not going to roll over and play dead. Alex looked at the debris field that had been the Zephyrian advance fleet. In a few hours, this battlefield would be empty except for the wreckage. But the news of what happened here would spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. The aliens had thought they were dealing with a primitive species that could be easily defeated. Instead, they had encountered something far more dangerous, a species that had learned how to win wars by refusing to lose them, a species that turned desperation into strength and impossible odds into victory conditions. The legends of human stubbornness were about to become something much more frightening. They were about to become a reputation. The quantum communication networks that connected every world in the galaxy buzzed with impossible news. The Zephyrian advance fleet had been destroyed, not damaged, not defeated, completely destroyed by a human force that should not have existed. On the consortium homeworld of Nexus Prime, the ruling council met in emergency session. Ambassador Veltar of the Astrani delegation floated above his crystalline chair, his energy form flickering with agitation. "This is clearly false information," he said, his voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "The humans possess perhaps 50 ships, outdated vessels with primitive weapons. How could they destroy 200 of our most advanced warships?" Admiral Carter stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense platform and smiled as she read the intercepted alien communications. The enemy was doing exactly what she had hoped they would do. They were dismissing the evidence of their own eyes because it did not fit their comfortable assumptions about humanity. "Captain Murphy, are our forces in position?" she asked. "Captain." Danny Murphy nodded from his position at the holographic display table. Around the three-dimensional map of the solar system, hundreds of green dots showed the locations of human vessels. Most of them were still hidden from alien sensors, but they were ready to reveal themselves when the time came. "All carrier groups are standing by, Admiral. We have over 3,000 fighters ready for deployment, plus the autonomous units." Admiral Carter studied the display. The main Zephyrian fleet was approaching fast, confident that they would easily crush the handful of human ships. They had no idea that Earth's military had spent the last century preparing for this exact scenario. "What's our count on the autonomous fighters?" 15,000 units ready for immediate deployment. Another 5,000 in reserve. 15,000 autonomous fighters, each one controlled by an artificial intelligence that had been programmed with every lesson humanity had learned from 3 centuries of warfare. Each one capable of learning and adapting in real time. Each one absolutely expendable. The aliens had never faced anything like them because no other species had ever been desperate enough to create them. Building intelligent machines of war was considered barbaric by galactic standards. Civilized species fought with honor and respect for life. They did not create artificial minds whose only purpose was to kill efficiently. "Admiral," called Communications Officer Linda Hayes from her station, "we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian main fleet. They're demanding our immediate surrender." "Put it through!" The main screen showed a tall Zephyrian in elaborate military dress. His pale blue skin was marked with intricate tattoos that indicated high rank. His large black eyes looked directly at Admiral Carter with the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. "I am Fleet Admiral Zexhai of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy. Human leader, your advance forces have been eliminated. Your system is now surrounded by 1,500 of our finest warships. Surrender immediately, and your species will be granted the mercy of slavery instead of extinction." Admiral Carter stepped forward so the alien could see her clearly. "This is Admiral Lisa Carter of the United Earth Defense Force. Fleet Admiral, I'm afraid you're operating under some false assumptions." "What assumptions could those be?" "Your primitive vessels are no match for Zephyrian technology." "The assumption that we only have a few primitive vessels." Admiral Carter nodded to Captain Murphy, who began entering commands into the holographic display. Throughout the solar system, human ships began dropping their stealth systems and powering up their weapons. Fleet Admiral Zexhai's confident expression began to change as his sensor operators reported the appearance of ship after ship. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of human vessels emerged from hiding places throughout Earth's solar system. "This is impossible," the alien whispered. "Our intelligence reports showed only a small fleet." "Your intelligence saw exactly what we wanted it to see," Admiral Carter replied. "Did you really think we would let you count our true strength? Did you imagine we would fight a war without preparing for it? The tactical display showed the real scope of humanity's hidden military. Ships emerged from bases built inside asteroids. Carriers revealed themselves from positions behind planets and moons. Battle groups that had been disguised as civilian mining operations showed their true nature. But this violates every treaty. Regarding military expansion, Fleet Admiral HFY protested. The Galactic Consortium strictly limits the size of member species' military forces. Admiral Carter laughed. We're not members of your consortium. We never agreed to your treaties. We never accepted your authority over human affairs. Did you forget that small detail when you decided to invade our space? Captain Murphy was coordinating the deployment of the human fleet with the efficiency of someone who had practiced this moment 1,000 times. Ships moved into attack formations with precision that spoke of years of training and preparation. Admiral, all fighter squadrons report ready for launch, he announced. Launch all squadrons. Show our guests what a real space battle looks like. The launch bays of hundreds of human carriers opened simultaneously. Clouds of fighters poured out into space like angry swarms of insects. But these were not just piloted craft. Mixed in with the human pilots were thousands of autonomous fighters, each one guided by an artificial intelligence that had been designed for one purpose: to kill enemy ships as efficiently as possible. Fleet Admiral HFY watched his sensors with growing horror as the true size of the human force became clear. Not hundreds of ships, but thousands. Not a desperate last stand, but a carefully planned military operation that had been years in the making. Human leader, this is madness. Our combined fleets could destroy entire star systems. This will lead to devastation beyond imagination. You're right, Admiral Carter agreed. It will. The question is, which star systems are going to be devastated? Yours or ours? The first wave of human fighters reached the Zephyrian fleet and immediately began demonstrating tactics that no civilized military had ever seen. Instead of engaging in orderly combat at respectful distances, the fighters dove directly into the alien formations. They used kamikaze attacks, ramming maneuvers, and swarm tactics that overwhelmed the aliens' ability to respond. Admiral, reported Captain Murphy, the autonomous units are performing beyond expectations. They're learning from every engagement and sharing that information with all other units in real time. Their effectiveness is increasing with each attack. Admiral Carter nodded. This was what made human warfare so terrifying to other species. Humans did not just accept losses. They learned from them. Every destroyed fighter transmitted its final battle data to the surviving units. Every failed attack was analyzed and improved upon. The human war machine became more efficient with every passing minute. Commander Rachel Green coordinated Earth's orbital defenses as the battle spread throughout the solar system. Her screens showed thousands of individual engagements as human and Zephyrian forces clashed in the space between planets. Admiral, we're detecting panic in the Zephyrian communications, she reported. Their commanders are requesting immediate reinforcements and asking for permission to withdraw. What are they telling their home fleet? They're reporting that humans fight like demons, that our ships appear out of nowhere and attack with no regard for their own survival. They're saying our artificial fighters are an abomination that violates every principle of civilized warfare. Admiral Carter smiled coldly. They're not wrong. We do fight like demons. We fight like a species that has been preparing for this war since the day we learned we were not alone in the universe. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it was over, the Zephyrian main fleet existed only as scattered debris and a handful of damaged ships that had managed to escape toward home. The human fleet remained largely intact, its losses replaced by reserve units that had been waiting for deployment. Fleet Admiral HFY's final transmission was broadcast on all frequencies so that every species in the galaxy could hear it. To all civilized worlds, he said, his voice filled with terror. Do not underestimate the humans. They are not like us. They do not fight with honor or restraint. They fight with the savagery of a species that has spent its entire history learning new ways to kill. They have created weapons that think and learn and adapt. They have built a military machine that grows stronger with every battle. They are not just warriors. They are something far worse. They are survivors. Admiral Carter listened to the message and knew that it would spread to every corner of the galaxy within days. The other species would hear it and think they understood what it meant. They would prepare for war with humans using their civilized understanding of military conflict. They had no idea what was really coming for them. They thought they had faced humanity's war machine today. In reality, they had only seen the opening move of a campaign that had been planned for decades. The real war was just beginning, and humanity had every intention of winning it completely. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Dakota as it prepared to cross the boundary of Earth's solar system. For the first time in human history, a battle fleet was leaving not as explorers or diplomats, but as conquerors. The moment felt heavy with the weight of species' destiny. "Final systems check complete, sir," reported Navigator Paul Wilson. "We are ready to make the jump to hyperspace." Jake looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These people had trained their entire careers for battles in Earth's solar system. Now, they were about to take the war to the enemy's territory, far from any hope of rescue or support. "Communications. Patch me through to all ships in the battle group." "All ships receiving, sir." Jake straightened his shoulders and spoke into the ship's comm system. "This is Dakota Actual to all vessels. Today we make history. Today humanity stops hiding behind the walls of our home system and takes the fight to those who would destroy us. We go not as conquerors seeking territory, but as protectors ensuring our species' survival. Remember your training, trust your shipmates, and show the galaxy what happens when you threaten human children." The response came back from 27 ships at once. "Understood, Dakota Actual. Ready to make history. Navigator, take us out. Destination, the Kepler system." The human fleet entered hyperspace in perfect formation. Behind them, Earth continued to prepare for the larger war that everyone knew was coming. Ahead of them lay the first major Zephyrian colony world outside their home system, a world that would become humanity's first conquest beyond the solar system. The journey through hyperspace gave Jake time to review the intelligence reports on their target. New Geneva was a Zephyrian industrial world with a population of 50 million. It produced advanced electronics and served as a major supply depot for their military forces. Most importantly, it was lightly defended because no one had ever attacked a consortium world before. "Sir," called Intelligence Officer Nancy Kim from her station. "Latest reconnaissance data shows minimal military presence at New Geneva. 3 patrol vessels and a single orbital defense platform. They're not expecting any kind of attack." "Of course they're not," Jake replied. "In their minds, we're still a primitive species hiding behind Earth's defenses. They have no concept of human strategic planning. The real beauty of the plan was its simplicity. While the Zephyrians were focused on rebuilding their shattered fleets and planning another assault on Earth, humanity was going to systematically dismantle their industrial capacity, cut off their supply lines, destroy their ability to wage war, force them to fight on human terms instead of their own. Captain Alex Stone, who had distinguished himself in the asteroid belt battle, now commanded his own battle group aboard the newly constructed UES Nevada. His voice came through the communication system from his flagship. "Jake, my reconnaissance squadrons are detecting massive cargo shipments throughout this sector. The aliens are moving supplies and equipment as fast as they can. They're scared." "They should be," Jake replied. "What kind of cargo are we talking about?" "Military equipment, mostly. Weapons, armor, ship components. Looks like they're trying to fortify their core worlds against attack." Jake smiled grimly. The enemy was doing exactly what human strategic planners had predicted they would do. They were consolidating their forces around their most important worlds and abandoning their outer territories. It was a logical response that would prove to be a fatal mistake. "All ships, prepare to drop out of hyperspace in 30 seconds. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system like a pack of wolves appearing in a sheep pasture. The 3 Zephyrian patrol vessels never had a chance to send a warning. They were destroyed by long-range missile strikes before they could even power up their weapons. "Sir, we have visual on New Geneva," reported sensor operator Chris Martinez. detecting massive industrial complexes on the surface, no defensive preparations visible. Jake studied the tactical display showing the planet below them. 50 million aliens going about their daily lives with no idea that their world was about to become a battlefield. In the old days, before the war, that might have bothered him. Now it just seemed like a problem that needed to be solved efficiently. Launch. All fighters. Begin precision strikes on military and industrial targets. Avoid civilian population centers where possible, but make it clear that resistance will be met with overwhelming force. The human fighters swept down toward the planet's surface like a storm of metal and fire. Their targets had been selected months in advance, based on intelligence gathered by deep-cover reconnaissance drones. Every weapons factory, every supply depot, every military installation was marked for destruction. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah White led the first ground assault team down to the planet's surface. Her Marines had trained for years in alien combat techniques and environmental adaptation. They moved through the Zephyrian cities like ghosts, striking critical targets and disappearing before the local security forces could respond. Command, "This is White, Actual." Her voice crackled through the communications system. "We have secured the primary spaceport and 3 manufacturing facilities. Resistance is minimal. The locals seem more confused than hostile." That was the problem with civilized species, Jake reflected. They had forgotten how to fight wars. They had grown comfortable with peace and prosperity. They had no idea how to respond when violence came to their doorstep. "Colonel White, what's the status of the Zephyrian government officials?" "Most of them have surrendered, sir. They're asking for terms and requesting that we spare civilian lives. A few tried to organize resistance, but their security forces are not equipped for real combat. Offer them the standard terms: complete surrender of all military assets and cooperation with occupation forces. In exchange, we guarantee the safety of civilians who do not resist." "Understood, sir." Jake watched the tactical displays as his forces systematically took control of an entire world. It was happening faster than anyone had dared hope. The Zephyrians simply had no experience with this kind of warfare. Their military doctrine was based on formal engagements between professional armies, not the kind of rapid conquest campaign that humanity was waging. "Sir," reported Communications Officer Ben Parker, "we're receiving transmissions from other Zephyrian worlds. They're demanding to know what's happening at New Geneva. Several fleets are moving to investigate." "How long until they arrive?" 18 hours minimum, sir. More likely 24 hours. Perfect. Jake's forces would be well established by then, with defensive positions prepared and reinforcements on the way. The enemy response would be met by entrenched human forces fighting from prepared positions instead of the easy conquest they were expecting. "All ships prepare for extended operations. We're not just raiding this system. We're keeping it." Captain Stone's voice came through the comm system again. "Jake, my intelligence teams are going through the captured facilities. You're not going to believe what we've found." "What is it, Alex?" "Complete technical specifications for Zephyrian military equipment, ship designs, weapon systems, defensive technologies. Everything we need to upgrade our own forces." Jake felt a surge of satisfaction. This was why humanity was going to win this war. They did not just destroy their enemies. They learned from them. Every captured world would make the human military stronger and more effective. Have your teams copy everything and transmit it back to Earth immediately. Our research and development people are going to have a field day with this information. The battle for New Geneva was over almost before it began. Within 12 hours, human forces controlled every major installation on the planet. The Zephyrian population was under occupation by a military force that seemed to appear everywhere at once and strike with devastating precision. But more importantly, humanity had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. They were no longer fighting a defensive war to protect their home system. They were fighting an offensive war to expand their territory and eliminate their enemy's ability to threaten them. "Sir," reported Navigator Wilson, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Carter. Put her through." Admiral Carter's image appeared on the main screen, and Jake could see the satisfaction in her expression. "Jake, congratulations on a successful operation. New Geneva is officially humanity's first extraterrestrial conquest." "Thank you, Admiral. What are our orders for Phase 2? Hold what you've taken and prepare for counterattack, but more importantly, begin implementing the Colonial Administration protocols. We're not just conquering these worlds, we're keeping them. New Geneva is going to become the first capital of humanity's interstellar empire." Jake looked out at the planet below them, now flying the flag of United Earth instead of the Zephyrian Empire. 50 million aliens were learning what it meant to live under human authority. Soon, billions more would learn the same lesson. The age of human expansion had begun. And unlike the peaceful exploration that other species had conducted when they first left their homeworlds, humanity's expansion would be driven by the simple understanding that in a hostile galaxy, the only way to ensure your species' survival was to make sure everyone else feared you more than you feared them. The legends of human determination were becoming the reality of human dominance. The emergency session of the Galactic Consortium had been called for the first time in over 2,000 years. In the Great Crystal Dome on Nexus Prime, representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss something that should have been impossible: the systematic conquest of civilized worlds by a primitive species from the galaxy's outer rim. Ambassador Veltar of the Astrani floated above his delegation's platform, his energy form flickering with barely controlled panic. "Fellow beings, we face a crisis that threatens the very foundation of our civilization. The humans have not simply defeated the Zephyrian fleet. They have conquered an entire world and established a permanent military presence outside their home system." The chamber filled with the sounds of translated alien voices as species after species voiced their disbelief and concern. The Nexari delegation buzzed with hive-mind communication. The ancient Vorthon representatives consulted data crystals that contained millennia of military history. None of them had any experience with a situation like this. High Counselor Mordesh of the Vorthon spoke in his race's slow, deliberate manner. "In 17,000 years of galactic civilization, no species has ever conducted aggressive conquest operations against established consortium worlds. The humans appear to be operating outside all accepted parameters of civilized behavior." Meanwhile, Fleet Admiral Kevin Brooks stood in the command center of humanity's newest and most powerful vessel, the UES Dominion. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of human forces throughout 3 star systems. What had started as a single raid on New Geneva had expanded into a full-scale campaign of conquest. "Admiral," reported Intelligence Officer Janet Murphy, "our monitoring stations are picking up massive communication traffic between consortium worlds. They're trying to coordinate a response to our operations." Kevin studied the intelligence reports with satisfaction. The aliens were doing exactly what human war planners had predicted they would do. They were calling meetings. They were debating responses. They were forming committees to study the problem. Meanwhile, human forces were conquering territory at a rate that made such deliberations meaningless. "What's our current territorial control status?" Kevin asked. "We now hold 4 complete star systems, Admiral. New Geneva, Proxima Station, the Arcturus colonies, and the Centauri mining worlds. Total population under human authority: approximately 200 million beings from 6 different species. 200 million aliens now lived under human rule." The number was staggering, even to Kevin. Just 6 months ago, humanity had been confined to a single star system. Now they controlled territory that some galactic powers had taken centuries to acquire. Captain Amy Johnson's voice came through the communication system from her position aboard the UES Montana. "Admiral Brooks, we've completed the siege of Vega Prime. The Zephyrian garrison has surrendered unconditionally. That gives us control of their primary shipbuilding facility in this sector." "Outstanding, Captain. What's the status of the shipyard?" Fully. Operational, sir. Our engineering teams estimate they can have it producing human-designed vessels within 3 months. The Zephyrian workers are cooperating fully with the transition. Kevin nodded with grim satisfaction. This was the key to humanity's strategy. They were not just conquering worlds. They were integrating them into a growing industrial base that would support further expansion. Every captured shipyard, every seized factory, every surrendered research facility became part of humanity's war machine. Admiral, called Communications Officer Robert Hayes. We're receiving a transmission from the consortium. It's marked as a formal diplomatic communication. Put it through. The main screen showed a delegation of alien representatives sitting around a crystalline conference table. Kevin recognized several species from the intelligence files, Astrani, Vorthan, Nexari, and others. They all looked appropriately grave and concerned. Ambassador Veltar served as their spokesman. Admiral Brooks, I am authorized to speak for the Galactic Consortium in this matter. We demand the immediate withdrawal of human forces from all conquered territories and the cessation of aggressive military operations. Kevin stepped forward so the aliens could see him clearly. Ambassador, I'm afraid you're in no position to make demands. You might want to try asking nicely instead. The energy being's form flickered with what Kevin had learned to recognize as alien indignation. Admiral, the consortium represents over 40 species and controls thousands of worlds. Surely you cannot believe that humanity can stand against such overwhelming numbers. You know what I believe, Ambassador? I believe you're scared. I believe your entire consortium is running around in circles trying to figure out how a species you dismissed as primitive has conquered 4 of your star systems in 6 months. High Counselor Mordesh leaned forward, his ancient features showing concern. Human leader, you must understand that your actions threaten the stability of galactic civilization. For millennia, we have maintained peace through cooperation and mutual respect. Your aggressive expansion violates every principle we hold sacred. Kevin laughed, and the sound seemed to make several of the alien delegates physically recoil. Sacred principles. Mutual respect. You want to know what I think of your sacred principles? I think they're the luxury of species that have never had to fight for their survival. Admiral Brooks interrupted Communications Officer Hayes. Captain, Johnson is reporting that she's detecting large fleet movements in the consortium core systems. They appear to be massing forces for a major military response. Kevin nodded without taking his eyes off the alien delegation. How large are we talking about? Initial estimates suggest over 5,000 ships, sir. Multiple species contributing. Vessels to what appears to be a joint task force. 5,000 ships. It was the largest military force the galaxy had seen in recorded history. Under normal circumstances, it would be more than enough to crush any threat to galactic stability. But these were not normal circumstances, and humanity was not a normal threat. Ambassador, Kevin said, returning his attention to the screen, I'm going to give you some free advice. Cancel that fleet movement. Send your ships home. Forget about trying to restore your precious status quo. And why would we do that, Ambassador? Veltar asked. Because you have no idea what you're dealing with. You see our conquest of 4 star systems, and you think you understand the scope of human military power. You think if you assemble enough ships, you can overwhelm us with superior numbers. Kevin gestured to the tactical displays around him, showing the true extent of human force deployment throughout their new territories. What you don't understand is that those 4 systems are just the beginning. While you've been having meetings and debates, we've been building the largest military-industrial complex in galactic history. The aliens on the screen looked at each other with expressions that translated as confusion and growing fear across multiple species. They were beginning to realize that they might have underestimated their opponent again. Every world we conquer becomes a base for further expansion, Kevin continued. Every factory we capture starts producing human weapons. Every shipyard we take begins building human vessels. Every day you waste in committee meetings, We get stronger. Captain Johnson's voice came through the comm system again. Admiral, I'm now showing massive industrial output from all occupied territories. New Geneva alone is producing over 200 fighters per day. The Vega shipyards have begun construction of our first super dreadnought-class vessels. Kevin smiled at the alien delegation. Did you hear that, Ambassador? We're not just conquering your worlds. We're turning them into weapons factories. Your own industrial capacity is being used to build the fleet that will destroy you. Hi. Counselor Mordesh's ancient voice carried a note of desperation. Surely there must be some way to resolve this conflict through negotiation. What do you want? Territory? Resources? We can arrange compensation for your losses. What do we want? Kevin repeated. We want to survive. We want to make sure that no alien species ever again has the power to threaten human existence. We want to build an empire that will last 10,000 years and guarantee that our children's children will never have to fight for their right to exist. The chamber fell silent as the implications of Kevin's words sank in. The aliens were beginning to understand that they were not dealing with a territorial dispute or a trade war. They were facing a species that intended to reshape the entire galaxy according to their own vision of security and survival. Admiral, reported Intelligence Officer Murphy, our deep space monitoring stations are detecting the approach of the consortium fleet. 5,200 vessels confirmed. They'll reach our outer territories in approximately 72 hours. Kevin studied the tactical displays showing the incoming enemy force. It was indeed the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Under any reasonable military analysis, it should be more than sufficient to crush human expansion and restore the previous balance of power. But Kevin knew something the aliens did not. Humanity had been preparing for this moment since the day they learned they were not alone in the universe. The industrial capacity of 4 conquered star systems was just the tip of the iceberg. Hidden shipyards throughout human space had been working around the clock to prepare for two.